If you're a buyer in this market and you have been outbid in some of these crazy bidding wars, then I bet you've seriously considered the idea of building a brand new home. And why not? Like, to get to design and have everything to your exacting specifications is incredibly appealing. And of course, avoiding those bidding wars is too. But there are many factors that go into the whole process that you really need to consider prior to jumping into the water with a brand new builder. So stay tuned. I'm going to list 5 pros and 5 cons of the new home construction process. Hi, I'm Jennifer Queen with the Jennifer Queen team and RE/MAX Professionals. And if you haven't already subscribed to our channel, please feel free to hit that subscribe button below. It'll help you see all the new content we're coming out with this year. Also, if you like this video at the end of it, please feel free to hit that like button. It really helps us in determining just what kind of content to come out with based on what you guys are watching and enjoying. Thanks, guys. Now let's get to the topic of today. So, new construction home. New construction can be a great option if you are trying to get into the market like we're in now, where it's super competitive and you want some say in the design, and you also have flexibility really in your timelines. I think the pros are oftentimes quite obvious. The builders do a great job of advertising a lot of the features of a new home, but a lot of the time what gets overlooked are the cons to building. So let's get into it right now. So starting with pro number 1. Pro number 1 is you get to have a fair degree of say in the whole design process. So in Winnipeg, what you'll find is you have a fair degree of latitude over the development. There's many new developments going on up in all corners of the city, as well as the builder, as well as the floor plans that you choose. Some decisions you're going to have to make will be structural, some will be design oriented. Oftentimes the builders will have a variety of different floor plans that you can choose from, and depending on the builder and their scale of customization, you might be able to even design your own floor plans or take ones from the internet that you saw that you liked or fellow friends and share those floor plans with the builder too. It all depends on the builder, the area, and the lot that you've purchased, but a lot of the time there's a fair degree of customization that can go into the whole process. A lot of the time these builders also have show homes that you can go tour. So what we find is the show homes tend to have a number of upgrades, sometimes upwards of $50,000 to $100,000 worth of upgrades from the standard specs. These show homes though, they really let you get a feel for the layout and function of the home. So the show homes often have upgrades just so that you can see how nice the house can look at the end of the process. What you'll find too is there's a fair degree of customization. So say you go to a show home, it's got a 2-story living room as part of the show home, but you decide you'd rather have a 4-bedroom floor plan upstairs instead of the 3 they're advertising. A lot of people, what they'll do is they will make that living room just one level and then have a bedroom above it. Having those options when you're building to customize based on your family's needs are a huge advantage when you are building a home. Another example I often see is, say you are building a living room, a lot of builders will offer an option to cantilever, which means kind of bump out a portion of the living room, maybe to push back your fireplace and kind of have a flush wall, just so it doesn't obstruct the living room space itself. So there's lots of little customization things you can do that either add square footage or improve the livability for you and your family. Another example, I guess, would be sometimes I've seen people extend the roof line of the home over a covered patio space so that maybe one day they can screen it in and have a nice sunroom. Just little tweaks that you can make to existing floor plans can also make a huge difference in the livability of the space for you and your family for years to come. Really though, what I have found buyers to find the most valuable is being able to put their own flair and taste into their own home. And once you get through the contract, have your offer accepted, and you've removed your contingencies, often at that point what you're going to do is go to the builder's design center. And this design center is often the mecca of inspiration. They will have all of the standard features laid out from you, but there's always this little upgrade section too that you can go visit and say there are things that are important to you. Like perhaps you don't want rolled vinyl in your kitchen. They will have an abundance of flooring options and finishes that you can really choose from. It really can be quite exciting. It can also be overwhelming. And it can also be expensive. So one thing that I like to warn my buyers about, for them to just keep in mind when they are going to the design center, is have a budget in mind when you're going in. Because while it might not seem like a lot to upgrade this kitchen faucet for $300 or get the granite sink for another $500, those costs really do add up. And sometimes if you haven't already built a provision into your contract whereby you are allowed to have a certain amount of allowances when you go to that design center, a lot of the time what ends up happening is people pay those funds out of pocket. So you don't want to be leaving the design center with a huge bill that's going to put financial strain on you. Talk to your realtor about possibly building in allowances into your original contract so that you have a budget to keep in mind. Otherwise, all the standard specs are what's included in your base contract. So really, I'm just talking about upgrades. So if you think you're going to go to the design center and be swayed by the beautiful designs they have there, or you want to just leave yourself open to a few upgrades at the design stage, just build a little bit of an allowance into that contract is what I would recommend. Okay, so let's talk about our first con. And it's not necessarily a con, it's just something to be wary of. And that is builder mortgages. So there are really, in Manitoba, there's two types of products that people or that the banks will offer to you for mortgage financing. The first is very similar to a conventional mortgage where you give a deposit with your offer and then the balloon payment is due upon possession. So with builders though, they're going to want a larger deposit than say in resale homes. So typically what we're seeing is a 5% of the total purchase price is being put down in that deposit amount. And then the remainder, the other 95% of your payment isn't due until possession. That's one option. The other option though in Manitoba that we often see used is called a construction mortgage. So what a construction mortgage is, it's a type of mortgage that allows the builder to be paid in stages throughout the process of your build. So it sounds less attractive at first to a buyer. Why would you want to be giving over money while you can't live in the home and start paying interest on those funds? But what a lot of builders will do is what they call transfer the land into your name so that when the home is completed, you don't pay the substantial land transfer taxes that you would in the other format of the mortgages. So you pay land transfer tax only on the value of the lot. You own the lot while the builder builds upon it. And then at the end of the construction process, you don't have this huge land transfer tax bill outstanding. Now, the way that these construction mortgages usually play out is there's 4 or 5 stage payments. The first is you usually give a deposit with your offer, still similar to the other format. The second is then you usually give an additional deposit once the ground has been dug and your foundation is ready to go in. The third stage I would say is usually once framing is complete and a roof is in place on your home. Then the fourth stage is typically once drywall is up on the interior of the home and it's all mudded and taped. And then the last stage is usually just the balance remaining on that mortgage. But usually there's a good chunk of money that's handed over to the builder at each stage of the process. This is attractive to builders because cash flow in business, in all businesses, is always paramount, and it keeps a steady stream of funds coming into the builder. They don't have to find outside financing for their projects. The challenge though is that not all banks will grant mortgages, construction mortgages. Also, another challenge is depending on the builder and their size and their liquidity, what you will find is not all builders will do a conventional mortgage. They want construction mortgages. So finding a blend between the builder you want and the mortgage options available to you can be a bit of a challenge. So make sure you reach out to your realtor, talk to them about the different builders and the different types of funding they will accept, and talk to your bank and see if they're open to construction mortgages as well as they would all be open to conventional. But mixing the two can sometimes be a challenge. So pro number 2 is home warranty. I feel like this gets advertised a lot, but maybe not a lot of people understand exactly what is entailed in a home warranty program. A very popular one in Manitoba is called the 127. And I believe there's also some builders that offer their own, that's a 12510. But in essence, this is what it means. When you hear 1, that means the amount of years. So 1 year is kind of like your bumper to bumper warranty, regardless of the builder you use. I find it's pretty much similar across the board. And that means should anything go wrong in the home, any defect or deficiency, whether it be structural, mechanical, or cosmetic, that is covered in that first year against defects. So you can call the builder, get them to come in, fix any deficiencies within that first year, and then you don't have to worry about it. The 2 years, so that's the first 2 years of your ownership, cover is a little bit more reduced from that first year warranty, but in the second year, they're guaranteeing still like all the structural components, but they're still guaranteeing things like mechanical, so like hot water tanks or furnaces or electrical, those kinds of things are covered for the first 2 years. Then depending on the warranty you have, whether it be the 5, 7, 10, depending on what your builder offers, what you'll find usually in those the first 5 years or 7 years or 10 years is some kind of coverage for the major building envelope. So that should be covered for at least those first 5 years, and that's anything really structural, so roof, foundation, those sorts of things. And then the 10 isn't offered by as many builders, but for those that do offer it, it's really just the structural foundation that they are guaranteeing will be free of deficiencies for that first 10 years. Now there's some like varying degrees, and of course there's terms with all of these warranties, just as there is in any insurance product, but I'm going to include a link below just with some information if you want to read about the home warranty programs. Another thing to keep in mind though in Manitoba is that you want to make sure, regardless of the warranty program your builder is using, just make sure to ask that they are still in good standing, their fees are all up to date. You don't want there to be any kind of discrepancy should there ever be an unlikely chance of there being an issue. So con number 2, escalation fees. This is something that catches a lot of buyers off guard and they've never heard of it before, so it's important to know it up front because ultimately it affects your affordability and your monthly payments, which obviously will impact your enjoyment of your home long term. So I have found most builders reps to be incredibly helpful and knowledgeable and forthcoming with information. But a lot of the time the stuff that gets missed in that initial sit down when you're learning about their products, their options, etc., is this escalation fee, because they're pricing things out for you like, what if I wanted to upgrade this? What if I wanted to upgrade that? This sometimes does get skipped over. But it is important to find out the cost up front because it's something you need to be able to sit down with your bank and make sure that your numbers will work. An escalation clause is something that builders have put into effect as a protection for themselves. So say you were to contract with a builder starting today and lumber prices were to increase as they did during COVID. It is a perfect example. What that builder has written into the contract is that the final sale price can go up by X amount of dollars depending on material costs. So what that means is the price you've settled on with the builder isn't necessarily the final price. Oftentimes, there is a cap on this amount. Prior to COVID, I would say it wasn't uncommon to see caps of around $10,000. However, some builders who never even had escalation clauses in their contracts now have them and they're all the way up to $35,000, which is a significant increase to your bottom line. Now, a thing to note about escalation clauses though, is they can be negotiated out of a contract or they can also be negotiated downward. It depends on the builder, it depends on your situation. My advice to you is to figure out a strategy with your realtor. Talk to your realtor, figure out which builders have these escalation clauses, see if it puts your affordability actually out of range, because $35,000 in some cases might, and see what your realtor has to share with you in regard to just how flexible certain builders are with these escalation clauses. So pro number 3, I feel like this is obvious, but it must be stated anyways, is maintenance. You're buying a brand new home. You don't have to maintain much, to be honest, in those first few years. Your shingles are new, your furnace is newer, you don't have to worry about replacing windows. There's minor maintenance type items like new construction. Often what we see is ground settling around the home as time goes, so you'll want to work on your grading, etc., as well as maintenance type items like changing furnace filters, but otherwise there's not any major maintenance expenses headed your way. There would really be nothing you need to do in your immediate future. Another con is timelines. You have to be incredibly patient if you're building a home in this market, especially in a post-COVID market. So typically what we used to see is from the time you sit down and write your contract to the time your home is complete is usually around that 6 to 8 month window. During COVID though, where we found there were supply chain issues or shortages in labor and trades or increasing costs, what we found was a lot of builders' timelines increased dramatically, like not just talking a few days, we're talking months. I've noticed that some builders are now quoting 12 months out from sitting down and writing that contract. So what that means is you need to have a fair degree of flexibility in your own situation to be comfortable to move into that home when it's ready. So good news is a lot of builders will either give you a 30, 60, or 90-day kind of letter saying this is when your possession will be. It's usually when drywall goes up, because then at that point they can tell you exactly when your possession date is going to be. So you can plan to sell your home around that schedule, but not always. Some people I have found end up just selling their home to take advantage of the market, and then what they will do is move into a month-to-month rental. Obviously not ideal if you don't want to move twice, but it's ideal, I guess, if you want that peace of mind knowing your home is sold and what price you're going to get for it. Another option that we've seen, not so commonly, it's not as common in Manitoba, but it is an option, especially in an overheated market like we're in, where buyers are giving their firstborn just to get into a home, is rent backs. So what that is it's selling your home to a buyer, but then having a provision in your contract where once the buyer now owns it, they let you rent it for a few months. Much less common of an arrangement in Manitoba, but I have seen it, it can happen. It's not gonna be a long-term thing. Like we're usually talking under 30 days where they'll let you rent it, because ultimately they wanna be in their own home too. But yes, being able to be flexible in your moving schedule is paramount. So figuring out a schedule with your realtor that works for you, incredibly important. Pro number 4, there is less competition. So not every buyer is willing to build a home. I know that a lot of buyers are unable to read floor plans and visualize themselves in a house based on a floor plan. Totally normal, I totally get it. And so what they need to see is either an exact show home to the one they would be buying, or they would need to just buy resale homes just for their own peace of mind. And that's totally fair. But if you are one of those people that can read from a floor plan and visualize just how a home will look, then by all means, you're one of the more few, to be honest. And because there are fewer buyers that are able to conceptualize in this manner, there's less competition. So you won't typically get into a bidding war on a lot or a new construction spec home. It's far less likely, just because of that inability for some other buyers to visualize. Just a key point there though, lots are selling pretty quickly, especially choice lots. So you still have to act pretty quickly. It's just the likelihood of being in a bidding war, far less. Con number 4, I'm gonna call this next con hidden fees, which sounds, I think, worse than it is. It's more just things that people have failed to consider in their home buying process. So oftentimes what you're going to find in newer subdivisions are signs that say homes starting at $450,000. And that's great, but keep in mind, it's very seldom that somebody can actually build their home for $450,000. We are talking about a basic lot, a basic floor plan with no upgrades. But anytime you start changing any of those factors, prices will go up. So a prime example is lot size. If you decide that you want a bigger lot, anytime you add square footage to a lot, prices tend to go up. Anytime your lot is in a more ideal location, say backing onto a park or water, again, lot price is going to go up. And it's usually assessed by the developer what the lot prices will be, but there will be some premiums charged for a more expensive lot. Another thing you need to keep in mind is also elevation costs. So what that really means is how high your property sits on the lot itself. So say you are building a bi-level or a cab-over style home. Those homes tend to not be as deep into the ground, so the developer doesn't need to dig as deep. However, once they start having to dig deeper, there's more concrete involved for the below grade portion of the lot. A lot of the time those foundations cost more to put in. Or if they're bringing dirt in because they need to raise your lot to a certain amount for your home plan, that also costs. Landscaping costs as well. Another consideration that you need to make is for central air conditioning. This usually comes as a surprise to most of our clients that they would be buying a home and it potentially not have air conditioning in place, but I would say the majority of builders actually don't include air conditioning in their base plan. So don't be one of those people that gets caught off guard when it's plus 30 and you go to turn your air conditioning on only to find you have no air conditioning unit. Factor that in to your sale price. Landscaping, not so much a hidden expense, and it really does depend on the developer and the area. Some developers will require you to provide a deposit up up front saying that you will finish your lot to a certain specification, and once that happens, they will reimburse your deposit. It depends on the situation, but a lot of the time you need to factor in some kind of landscaping costs because builders don't necessarily quote that in their plans. Again, not really hidden costs, but other things you should really be taking into consideration because it affects the livability of the home are really things like fences, decks, window coverings, appliances. Those don't necessarily come with a brand new home. Set some money aside so that you have a contingency for when you take possession of the home so that you can buy these things and not be in financial strain. Pro number 5, efficiency. So new homes are just in general very efficient because the building codes and standards have only gotten more strict over the years, and a lot of that is focused on building efficiencies. So things like a certain quality or R value of insulation, or having insulated rim joists, or now having drain water heat recovery coils, or argon gas filled windows. All of those things contribute to having a much more efficient home than homes built several years ago that perhaps weren't having to be built to these exacting standards. And ultimately, it means lower utility costs for you. Con number 5, and honestly, hear me out on this one. I know that a lot of people don't understand the process, but I find this to be paramount, is overall building process and having to make quick decisions without the proper representation. So it isn't uncommon for people to just stroll into a show home on a Saturday afternoon just to see the latest design trends, etc. But when you're in that show home, if you are there without your agent or you don't give your agent's name, a lot of the time what happens is the builder's representative can assume you really as a client. So it's called procuring cause. But what it really means is if they can establish that they introduced you to the property, it's very hard after that point for your own realtor to step in and be able to represent you. Like I said before, the builder's reps are incredibly knowledgeable. They are able to get you quick answers as well as specs, and they're incredibly friendly and really good at their job. But what you need to keep in mind is that they represent the builder. And when you're getting into a big purchase like that, I think it's important for you to have your own individual representation and your own realtor standing in your corner. A lot of decisions in the design and building process are decisions that actually need to be made fairly quickly. So to have to decide upon a deposit amount in the heat of the moment, do you know you're giving the right amount? Do you know you're not overpaying? Do you have the proper contingencies in place to protect your money? These are things that your own realtor can advise you upon. Keep in mind too that when you are building new construction, you aren't typically using the standard prescribed offer to purchase form in Manitoba that's very straightforward and easy to understand. Oftentimes what we are seeing are these thick builder contracts that you complete with the builder, and a lot of the provisions in there do protect the builder, and you want to make sure that you have a realtor there that's going to read through it with you, highlight anything that's of concern or not normal based on what they've been seeing in the market, for example, escalation clauses, point those things out to you. Again, you want to have somebody standing in your corner making sure that you are making a sound decision that's right for your family, and that you aren't getting yourself into a bad situation or giving a deposit away that is non-refundable. Another benefit of having your own realtor too is oftentimes with new construction homes, you don't see your home until a day or two prior to possession when you do a final walkthrough. You walk through with the builder and you kind of do a final checklist. So you make a note of all the deficiencies within the property and what needs to be fixed. But having a realtor in your corner for A, that walkthrough, and B, for the process after and getting everything addressed is incredibly valuable. Like, it's stress off of your shoulders that you're letting somebody else handle for you. So whether or not you decide to build brand new or go with a resale home on the market, make sure you pair yourself with a good realtor. A realtor that blends well with you, understands the gravity of the situation for you and the importance of it to you and your family. They should have experience in this area, and they should understand the conditions that are written into any contract. And they should be really willing to educate you, to make sure you're aware of all the stages of the process as well as all the terms within the contract and what building looks like. Because at the end of the day, you shouldn't be signing any contracts unless every single question you have has been fully explained to you. You need to feel comfortable before you put your name on that dotted line. Okay, shameless self-promotion here, but honestly, If you don't have that realtor, you are looking for a realtor that you think could help you with the new construction process, please feel free to reach out to me and my team. My number is 204-797-7945. Feel free to call or text. But we have all had a lot of experience in the new construction market, which builder options there are in the varying areas, as well as lot options too. We are comfortable with the contracts and we are well versed in the contracts that the builders provide. So please feel free to reach out. We are always happy to help, whether it be new construction or resale homes. It's just the considerations are different depending on which avenue you really want to take. And again, guys, if you found value in this video, please feel free to hit that like button below. It really does help us figure out what kind of content to come up with, and be sure to subscribe to our channel. Thanks and happy house hunting!